Hi, I'm Roro, and this is Roro Rants. As always, everything I say will be backed up with sources. If you look at the comments section, I will provide links to articles and videos that have all the information and sources for where I get my information. What does it mean when a country is the richest country in the world but can't pay its bills? What kind of country is falling apart? The infrastructure is just crumbling all around, but cannot manage to fix it. What kind of country has so much work to do, people unemployed, but no jobs? What kind of country has so many people homeless in the streets, living in their cars, but has houses and buildings all around that are empty, some of them falling apart and molding because no one's living in them? What kind of a country exports food, so much food, when millions of its own citizens, including children, go to bed hungry at night? What kind of a country has the smartest people in the world but cannot compete globally in educating its children? What kind of a country brings in students from other countries to go to its universities while its own citizens cannot afford to attend or have to incur a lifetime of debt in order to attend? What kind of a country allows international corporations who are not job creators, they don't even create jobs in the country, most of these corporations are even owned by foreigners, what kind of a country allows these corporations to pollute the land, the air, the water, and the soil, making the air poisonous to breathe, so that like 20% of its children have asthma now, and lung cancer rates among non-smokers are rising, and making the water poisonous to drink, making the soil too poisonous to grow crops, and destroying the planet in the process? And after letting these multinational corporations and oil companies pollute its land, make its own citizens pay for the cleanup? What kind of a country sends its young men overseas to die and get maimed while fighting wars to protect other countries' citizens and the profits of those large international corporations, all while incurring debt for its own citizens to pay for these wars, while defense companies get rich making weapons, tanks, vehicles, arming both sides of the wars, and lets the bankers get rich from the interest on lending the country and both sides money for the wars so that the country will be indebted to them forever? What kind of a country does not even take care of the vets when they come home and doesn't take care of their families if they die in the war? What kind of a country has the most brilliant scientists and make its citizens pay for research to find all kinds of medical treatments for diseases, but then most of its own citizens cannot afford the treatments when they get sick? What kind of a country admits that drug addiction is a disease caused by the same as alcoholism is a disease? It's a disease covered by medical insurance, yet makes the possession of drugs a crime and allows private corporations to own the prisons and lets the judges in our justice system to own stock in these prisons and lock up 2.3 million of its citizens, 46% of whom are locked up for nonviolent drug possession, and a disproportionate number of them minorities and youth, and then make the citizens pay for it? What kind of a country commits these atrocities? Well, I'll tell you, a profit-driven capitalist country controlled by bankers, brokers, and large international corporations and foreign countries who own the debt and therefore think that they own the entire country and everything in it, including the people. This country is the United States of America. Does this sound like our United States of America? Does this country we have turned into sound like the great country our forefathers envisioned for us? Did we fight off our British oppressors in the American Revolution only to be enslaved by British bankers and foreign nations like China, Japan, Saudi Arabia, and the 20 plus other countries and multinational corporations that own our debt and are set upon making us all slaves? Did our grandfathers die in World War I, our fathers and uncles in World War II and Korea, and our brothers in Nam and our children in the Middle East for our freedom, just to be indebted to all the countries in the world and these multinational corporations and the bankers? So how did it get like this? How did our great country get owned by these bankers, these corporations, the 1%? Well, we know it's corruption, of course. We know about the corrupt politicians, how they take bribes. They call it lobbying. Lobbying is basically just legal bribery. You know, lobbyists go to Washington, they work for these big corporations and these foreign interests and these big bankers. They go to Washington and they bribe the politicians, and then the politicians do exactly what they say. And then in the campaigns, the politicians say that they're representing the citizens to get votes, but they're really not. They're really just working for whoever their lobbyists who gave them money work for. But that's not all of it. Some of it has to do with our debt to these other countries and big corporations. By borrowing these huge sums of money for these wars, starting after 9/11, Bush got us into these wars and ran up this huge debt, because it wasn't that bad before Bush. What happened was our leaders, they sold us out. They sold our country off to the highest bidder. And countries like China and Japan hold the biggest portion of the debt, but also large corporations and bankers, they bought up a lot of the debt. And whoever owns a lot of the debt has a lot of power over us. And I'm going to go into and explain why this is true. But first of all, I'm going to explain a little bit about debt and deficit, because I know Donald Trump just gave a speech that sounded really good, and he's talking about the trade deficit being the problem, and it's not. It's not as big of a problem. The problem is the debt, and what he wants to do about the TPP is not going to help. He's sadly mistaken. But let me get into the debt, the deficit, and there are two kinds of deficits. There's the budget deficit and there's the trade deficit. Okay, now the budget deficit is how much money we take in, the difference between that and how much money we spend. So per year, so let's take it per year. So if we take the amount of money we take in and the amount of money we spend, if the difference between the amount we take in minus the amount we spend is negative, then we have a deficit. And that means we're spending more than we take in. If the amount of money we take in minus the amount of money we spend is positive, then we have a surplus. That means we're spending less money than we take in. Now, the money we take in is through income taxes and other taxes and all that. The amount we spend is mostly on these wars, which are ridiculous. It's like 40% of our budget. And we do not need to be in all these wars. We are pretty much all over the globe protecting countries for free, getting into wars we don't need to be getting into, and killing innocent children, which I'll put some links in the description. We are the terrorists in the world. We are the terrorists. And I'll explain that later. But I mean, I watched some videos that, it's just, it's sickening. It's sickening what happened. We're arming both sides with our weapons companies and just to make profits off these wars. And what's happening is children, even in these drone strikes, children are getting killed. There's been 178 children killed in drone strikes. They're not as precise as you think they are. They're not. And it's just heartbreaking. I mean, remember Newtown? Do you remember Newtown? How horrible that was when those kids got killed? Picture that every fucking day in the Middle East. Children getting killed. That's why we have ISIS. That's why they're pissed off. I don't blame them for being pissed off. We're the fucking terrorists. We need to stop these wars. That's what's making us unsafe. And it's all about money. They're all doing it to make money. Oh, God. All right, I need to calm down. So let me get back to the budget deficit. So about 40% of that goes to war, and I can think of a hell of a lot of other better things that it can go towards. So that is the budget, okay? So if we spend more than we take in, which is what we have right now, we have a budget deficit. Right now, it's between 500 billion and 700 billion a year. So we're going into debt. 500. Say it's 500 billion a year. I know Obama got it down. He reduced the deficit. So say it's 500 billion a year. That means in 10 years, you multiply 500 billion by 10 years, that's $5 trillion will be in debt. That's bad. Okay, that's really bad. That's going to add to it. So either way, we need to get a surplus and start paying it off is what we need to do. But what Trump is saying about the trade deficit, that's a whole different thing. And that's not going to help at all. Okay, because the trade deficit is a whole different animal. The trade deficit has to do with trade, and what that is the amount of money that it's the difference between how much we import and how much we export. But that's all to do with merchants and companies and everything. So that does not influence our debt. I mean, it influences in a little way because it tells other countries how good our economy is. And that helps because now here's why the reason why it's important how the debt hurts us and how it can hurt us and how it can help us. Because the reason why we have this debt, the reason why all these countries are willing to loan us this money is because they feel that, oh, our economy is strong. We're the richest country in the world. So they want to buy bonds, and that's what this debt is. Now, you don't want to have zero debt. You never want to have zero debt. It's good that we have some debt because some of it is bonds. And even the U.S. citizens, we own some bonds. I own some bonds. When I was a kid, people would give them to me for my birthday and stuff. Bonds. They're a good thing to save, and then in 7 years they double, and they used to be a good investment. I don't know if they are anymore, but anyway, if a country had zero debt, that means nobody would want to invest anymore. That means you're a bad investment. That's not good. So we want to have we definitely want to have some debt. But what could happen is if one country like China owns a bunch of our debt and we try to, like Trump is saying, he's going to do all this stuff. You can't, because then they can threaten to sell off the debt. And if they do that, that could hurt the dollar. Because say China says, I'm going to sell off all my debt, I'm going to start selling off all those bonds, then all the other countries, all the other people that own the debt are going to panic and start selling theirs off. And then what happens is that makes the dollar value drop and our economy will collapse. So this is the kind of thing that, Trump is not taking into account all these other factors. You can't just start trade wars with other countries. There's a lot of other things that have to be taken into consideration. So, and it's confusing even to me. I'm on a lot of pain medicine and I don't have the kind of brain I used to have, and I was never good with money anyway. I'm a physicist. I'm good with engineering and machines and space and stuff like that. I worked at the Hubble Space Telescope. I was a flight controller. I'm not good with all this business stuff and money and interest rates, but I'll try to explain it a little bit, as because I know I understand it a lot more than Trump, and I'm not even good at this stuff, and I understand it more than Trump. So basically, either that or he does understand, and he's just trying to fool the American people. So basically, okay, let me get back to the example. So say we owe 500 billion a year, and our debt right now it's about 19 trillion. Our debt is going to grow by 500 billion every year. So, but also there's going to be interest on that. Right now the interest is about 32 billion a year. Even if we balance the budget so that our deficit, say we didn't have a deficit, we didn't have a surplus, we balance the budget, it just means that we spend as much as we're taking in. Our debt wouldn't grow, the principal on our debt wouldn't grow, but we would still, the interest would still add to it. So it would still be growing by 32 billion a year. We need to have a surplus of 32 billion a year just to break even, just to stop the debt from growing. So if we want to pay off any of the debt, we have to have a surplus of greater than 32 billion a year to pay any of it off. And that is the debt and the budget deficit, nothing to do with the trade deficit. So whatever Trump wants to do with the trade deficit is not going to help the budget deficit. What's going to help the budget deficit is to end these goddamn useless wars. Oh, excuse my language. I said I wasn't going to cuss in this. I'm sorry. We got to end these fucking wars. Okay, that I got it out of my system. So in the above example, instead of the deficit being 500 billion, if we had a surplus of 32 billion, it would remain the same. We need to have a surplus of greater than 32 billion for it to grow. Okay, so we understand that. And we don't want, now China is selling off a little bit, but they're not like selling it all off because they're threatened by us. They're just selling a little bit off because they're having economic problems. China is now having some economic problems, and they're selling off a little bit of our debt just to get some money, and the whole world knows this. The world isn't panicking and starting to sell off all of our debt too. They know that China's just doing this because there are some conspiracy sites out there that are saying, oh, China's selling off the debt and you need to sell off all your stocks and buy gold and do this and build shelters and bomb shelters, and because it's going to be the end of the world. And, first they said it was going to be July, and then they said it was going to be August. Now they're saying it's going to be September, and a planet is going to come in our atmosphere and blow us all up. So anyway, that's all bullshit. Don't worry about that. China, if they wanted to sell all of our debt to screw us and devalue our currency, they wouldn't be selling just a little bit. They're just selling a little bit off because their economy's in a little bit of trouble and they're trying to get some money. They need cash. So anyway, so that's my opinion anyway. That's what's going on. China doesn't want the value of the dollar to drop either. The whole world, no one wants the value of the dollar to drop because the whole world deals in dollars. There's very few countries that still deal in gold. I think maybe Iran and North Korea. I wonder why we hate those two countries so much. Could it have anything to do with the bankers who get rich off keeping the dollar strong, and Iran and North Korea won't submit and let their economies be controlled by the US dollar? Do you think maybe that might have something to do with that? Anyway, I'm not going to, take sides here with Iran and North Korea because they're terrible dictatorships, and I would never do that. But as far as the economy goes, I think they're trying to bully them into accepting the dollar as the whatever. So, and let me get back to this. So the trade deficit is the difference between how much we import and how much we export. Now, we do import more goods than we export, and this is because everybody knows, because of NAFTA, we don't have as many factories over here anymore. A lot of the factories moved out for the cheaper labor to other countries, and this is why we have a trade deficit. But that's not always a bad thing. A trade deficit could mean, in some countries, it could mean that you're a wealthy country and you just buy more stuff because you have more money. As long as you also have savers, and a lot of the people in the country are saving money too, and not just spending all their money because they're poor. Now, in this case, I don't know. There are a lot of people that are poor and just spending. So we don't really know for a fact. Is it a bad thing that is our trade deficit a problem right now? We do have a lot of people that are savers. We have a lot of people that have money in stocks and still have money. You know, this next generation isn't going to probably be as lucky, but a lot of people still have 401ks and IRAs and stuff. So we do have savers. Anyway, Trump thinks that he wants to increase manufacturing to increase exports. And somehow that's going to help the debt. I don't understand where he gets that idea. It has nothing to do with the debt. And just to manufacture a bunch of stuff is not going to help us anyway, even whatever, because if there's no market for them, prices are going to be too high because our labor is going to be too high because we want to pay people $15 an hour, and who's going to buy this stuff? So, and he thinks he's going to threaten all these other countries with trade sanctions, and he's not. I don't think he's going to be able to do that. So anyway, Trump is not the smartest guy. That's probably why he's had a lot of bankruptcies and all this. So anyway, there's also another reason why we have a big trade deficit. Now, imports are considered any good. Now, this is a quote from an article, and I posted the link to it. Imports are any goods or services produced in a foreign country, even if produced overseas by a domestic company. Therefore, a trade deficit can occur even if all the imports are being sold by and sending profit to a domestic firm. With the rise of multinational corporations and jobs outsourcing, trade deficits are on the rise. Okay, so this means that we have multinational corporations that are here in the United States, and they sell their products here, but they're just making them overseas for the lower labor costs and everything. But they're counting them as imports. Now, should those really be counted as imports? I don't know. They're not really imports if it's an American company selling to Americans. If there's a lot of that, then that could be why we have such a trade deficit. But actually, if you think about it, these companies, it does hurt our economy in other ways than just taking away American jobs. These companies are getting all the benefits of being an American company while getting all the cheap labor, low environmental standards, and low taxes of the foreign country. So this is where Trump is really wrong. Instead of blaming the other countries, we need to tax the companies when they're importing these goods. They need to pay taxes on this. They're an American company. They need to pay American taxes. So think about all this when you consume, when all you consumers buy shit. When you buy imports, think about that. Try to support American products. Every time you purchase something imported, you're giving power to that country. You're selling off your children's freedom to save a few dollars. Is it worth it? Is it really worth the few dollars you save? Oh, God. Now, between the big banks and the multinational corporations, these people make up the 1%, the most wealthy people in the world, and they own more wealth now than the other 99% of the world combined. These greedy 1%, they took over the money. Now, they took over the banking and took over the Fed in 1913. And that's how they got to be controlling the big banks in this country. Then they took over our government by lobbying our government and politicians. So that's how they took over our government. Now they want to take over all of us. Now they want to pass the TPP. And this disastrous trade agreement is their way of saying F you to all of us. They want to take over all of the citizens, all of our freedom, and make us slaves to this global economy that only values profits. That's what the TPP is. In a way, this TPP is the new world order that those crackpot conspiracy theorists warned us about. Except instead of lizard people or aliens, they're the 1%. The TPP is not a trade deal. It's a coup. It's the 1% taking over the world and having more power than sovereign governments. Only 5 out of the whole 30 chapters of the TPP have anything to do with trade. It's not a free trade agreement. It has nothing to do with trade. It's about rigging the playing field for these 1% and not letting any other new businesses or local businesses in. That's what this trade agreement is about. It'll allow these multinational corporations, these 600 or so people got together, or these 600 or so multinational corporations got together and wrote this up in secret, but WikiLeaks got it, and I posted the link down there, and I read a few articles about it, and I went into WikiLeaks and read all the links for myself to make sure that all this stuff is true. So all the links are down there. It's going to allow these multinational corporations, the oil companies and more, to sue the government for projected profits if the government tries to pass any laws that'll hurt their profits. So think about this. A company, a multinational corporation, can sue the United States if the United States tries to pass a law that's good for us, that's good for the citizens, but hurts the company's profits, future profits. They could make up what they think are the future fucking profits. Oh my God, I said I wasn't going to swear. Sorry. So this is just beyond ridiculous. And people want this? Nobody wants this except those 600 people that were in the room, or companies or whatever. Now, so think about this, okay? It's gonna let these oil companies, these few multinational corporations, to increase drilling and fracking around the world. Let a few corporations take over the world, giving them more power than sovereign nations. Nations cannot pass any laws that'll ever hurt their profits. No other businesses, no little small businesses, will ever be allowed to compete with them. No new businesses. This isn't free trade. This is the opposite of free trade. By allowing this 1% to sue the government for hurting their profits, the TPP greatly reduces the power of the citizens to get any laws passed to protect our health, our environment, our survival, and any workers' rights, workers' safety, minimum wage, raising the minimum wage. We can't do anything anymore after this, because anything we try to do might hurt their future profits that they've calculated in their head, that say they are supposed to make this certain amount, and if we try to pass a law that cuts their amount that they're supposed to make, oh my God, this is just, I'm going to have a coronary. I got to stop. I got to calm down. Okay, calm down. Let me calm down. Let me drink some water. Because I can't even fucking believe that people are so stupid that they're going to vote for people that want to do this. All right, calm down, Roro, calm down. Oh God, drink some water. Let me take a hit of my vape and calm down a little bit. Okay. All right, so let me give some examples of what they can do. And there's articles down below about this. So Big Pharma, they want to be able to charge exorbitant prices for non-generic drugs for a range of 5 to 8 years before anybody could make the generic drugs, so that people can't afford the medicine when they get sick, or they'll have to pay these huge prices again and go bankrupt for medicine. Monsanto doesn't want to allow they won't be able to, people won't be able to have labels on foods. Monsanto wants to restrict the labeling of food. There's already a lawsuit for this. Under the TPP, the lawsuit will pass saying that we cannot label the foods because that'll hurt their profits. If people know how much poison is in the fucking food, they won't eat it and they won't buy it, and that will hurt Monsanto's profits. So no, you can't pass a law saying that the citizens can know what's in their food. No, that'll hurt their profits. People can't know that they're being poisoned. Are you crazy? You want people to know that they're being poisoned? All right, let's think of some other examples. Oh, media censorship. There's a whole chapter on media censorship. They want to censor the internet so that people like me can't come on here and talk about stuff like this. We all know that the mainstream media is corrupt. They serve their corporate overlords. They're not going to tell you this stuff. So they don't like us they don't want you to be watching our YouTube created news channels. Then you might learn the truth about the corruption. So there's a whole chapter about copyright laws to protect them against anything that may hurt their profits. So people like me might go to jail for telling you the truth, and I can't link articles. That's copyright laws. I don't know. I can't, even though I footnoted and everything, I don't know, whatever. They want to ban any campaigns or movements promoting locally owned goods and services. Think about that. You can't campaign or have a movement saying, buy local, buy American. Nope, can't do it. That is the New World Order, folks. No more nationalism. No more. That's saying that you can't even advertise. If you open up a business and you're not one of these 600, you can't advertise, because that would be a campaign promoting your locally owned goods or services. This isn't free trade. This is the opposite of free trade. If you're not in their club, you can't compete. This is the law saying that if you're not in their club, you can't compete. The playing field is rigged, and now they want to make it a law that it's rigged. So the TPP is bad for us. It's bad for the world. The New World Order is here, folks. It's here. We can't let this pass. Once it's done, it can't be undone. This isn't like a law that it's an American law, like you can go to Congress and get it repealed. This is an international thing. You can't, once it's passed, it's passed. Can't be undone. We'll have to live with it forever. And we're going to be slaves. So all these examples I've told you about, I hope they've convinced you that our government no longer serves the will of the people. It only serves the needs of these greedy 1%. Whether you're Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. Both parties serve the needs of those greedy 1%. They don't care about us. They don't care about the citizens. And this is why nothing can get done for the good of our citizens, for our basic needs, our health, our environment, our planet, the survival of our species. Everything is about money, profits. Nothing's ever going to get done to help us. They just don't care about us anymore. They care about profits. We've allowed them to take over the world. We've allowed it because we were all just happy and stupid and on our way and didn't pay attention. Well, and they're stupid too, because a world driven by profits, it's not even an intelligent design. Not only because the destruction of our planet will destroy them too, but also because it doesn't even look forward to the future, to long-term profits. If everyone becomes slaves and only makes just enough money to support their basic needs or even less, then they'll have no purchasing power. That'll drastically reduce the corporation's own long-term profits. You know, corporations are not humans. They're concepts. They have no compassion, no human emotion, no morals, no conscience. They're just cold and calculated, short-term, profit-driven purpose. They run like a computer program. Single purpose driven entities, hell bent on destroying the world and all life in it. But if they're computer programs, like any computer program, they only run on the logic that someone gave them. So people within the corporations are the ones who are providing the logic, and their goal is just short-term profit to line their pockets. The CEOs of these big companies, they don't even care about the survival of the corporation they work for, never mind the survival of our planet's ability to support life or the survival of our species. So maybe eventually the 600 or so corporations will die out, and that'll make the I don't get it. What that means that if they're gone, does that mean the TPP would be gone? But how many hundreds of years would it take? How many generations would it take? I don't know. Well, you know, if that happens, they're in for a big shock, because if there is this apocalypse and they destroy the world, shit hits the fan, the only things that are going to matter: food, water, medicine, and fuel. Whoever controls those resources will control the future. And it's not going to be them. Their paper money, their gold, none of that's going to be worth anything. It'll be survival of the fittest, the strongest, the most physically fit people. People in rural areas away from the big cities. Those are going to be the ones to survive. The military isn't going to support them. They're going to side with the citizens. It always happens. That's what always has happened in history. Well, I hope it never comes to this. I hope people wake up and stop them. We need to save them from themselves. What can we do? So what can we do? Stop voting for the same evil two parties who represent the 1%. Now that we know that the Democratic Party is just as corrupt as the Republican Party, and that they squashed Bernie's campaign and his progressive agenda, vote for the Green Party and Jill Stein. The Green Party is the only party that has policies that will stop the destruction of our planet. It's the only choice against the evil TPP, the only party that'll battle climate change. It's the only one. Hillary's for the TPP. She may say right now she's saying she's not. She's changes her mind, 3 times in the past year, but she says whatever's going to get her votes. When she's talking to Republicans, she'll say she's for it. When she's talking to Democrats, she'll say she's against it. Whoever she's talking to, that's what she'll say. But she's for it. If you look at the video, Sane Progressive, I provided below, she's got all kinds of proof in her video, in her comments, all kinds of proof with articles proving that Hillary is for it. TPP and fracking, and represents corporate interests and perpetual war, and war as a business model, and and Republicans, they don't even believe climate change is real. So forget them. And Trump would be powerless to do anything to stop Congress and the Senate if the Republicans keep control of Congress and the Senate from implementing their policy. They are the policy. They are the party of the 1%. So Trump may talk a big game, but he's not that smart, and he's not going to be able to do it. Both parties two-party system keeps us divided. That's their purpose. Their purpose is to keep the citizens divided so that they won't join together and fight the 1%. This is why Martin Luther King was assassinated. That is why. That's what Martin Luther King wanted to do. He said, let's all the poor people all join together, black, white, Asian, Hispanic, let's all get together and join against the establishment. That's why he was assassinated. Look it up. Read it if you don't believe me. That's what these two parties represent. Keep the people divided so the establishment can keep doing its dirty business. And libertarians, forget them. They are the party for the corporate interest. They want to just give all the power to interests, have no government at all. Just let the corporations run everything. Just get rid of the government altogether. No government of the people, no people at all, just corporations. They believe in so much freedom and small government. They just let them pollute the environment as much as you want, and no taxes at all, no public education, no roads, no police, no firemen, no nothing. Rely on privatization of everything, and we know how that's gone. Everything we've privatized just moves more money from the middle class to the 1%, and the middle class is disappearing. So forget about the libertarians. They're not any better. Green Party is the only way to go. And we need to stop this war for profit, this money as a god, this raping of our planet. We need to stop living the kind of lives that waste resources and contribute to our demise. We need to start to try to live in harmony with nature, conserve our resources, protect the environment for our children and our grandchildren. This is what the Green Party is. And you know, you won't hear this on mainstream media, but the Green Party is leading in the polls. If you look at the polls on the internet, they are leading. Look at some internet polls. Look at the one on my Facebook. Green Party's leading. Mainstream media won't tell you this. They're going to tell you that Hillary's winning, so that when she steals the election, you won't be shocked. And you'll say, well, yeah, she was leading in the polls. That's why she won. If they gave you the real polls and show you that the Green Party's winning, then everybody would be pissed off like they were when Bernie got the election stolen away from him. All kinds of lawsuits and everything. So anyway, let me tell you a little bit about the Green Party platform. There's the Green New Deal, investment in infrastructure. They want to have total clean power by 2030. You can read all about this on the platform. I gave the link to it. Solar, wind, all clean power by 2030. Also, better transportation system. You know what would be cool if we had those mag trains like they have in Japan, or they have a new one now that's like a vac mag train, maglev train that would go even faster, like 3,000 miles per hour. It could replace airplanes too. And let me read this. This is from their platform. Our current economic system is gravely flawed. It is unjust and unsustainable because it is premised on endless economic growth and destruction of nature. Our market economy, by externalizing the environmental and social costs of greenhouse gas emissions, is creating the greatest market failure in history. Climate change and its devastating effects. Our government's top economic goal, increasing gross domestic product, impels us to perpetually intensify our resource use and environmental destruction. Well, that just hit the nail on the head. Here's another one. Green economic policy places value not just on material wealth, but on the things which truly make life worth living. Our health, our relationships, our communities, our environment, and building peace and justice throughout our nation and the world. We aim to maximize our quality of life with a minimum of consumption. We aspire to less stuff, but more happiness. We propose a shift away from materialism to help people live more meaningful lives. as we save the planet from climate change and ever larger mountains of waste. We need to acquire the ability to distinguish between need and greed. Wow. And there's some really great stuff in this platform. On jobs, there's plenty of work to do that can enrich our communities. We need employment offices instead of unemployment offices to provide jobs for everyone who wants one. But we also need to provide an alternative to a job. This means provide everyone a sustainable livelihood. The need of our times is for security, not necessarily jobs. The concept of a job is only a few hundred years old. The artificial dichotomy between employment and unemployment has become a tool of social leverage for corporate exploiters. This produces a dysfunctional society in various ways. It is used to justify bringing harmful industries into rural communities, such as extensive prison construction and clear cutting of pristine forests. It has been used to pit workers, people needing jobs, against the interests of their own communities. It has created a self-esteem crisis in a large segment of the adult population who have been forced into doing work that is irrelevant, socially harmful, or environmentally unsound. So we want to promote policies that have job increasing effects. Many people still need jobs for their security, but we need to counterbalance the decline in jobs because there's new technology. A lot of jobs are going to be replaced by robots, and we just don't have as many jobs anymore. And also, corporate flight to cheaper labor markets, as we've seen with, people are going to, a lot of things that are going to be made elsewhere because labor is cheaper outside of our borders. Also, the disappearance of socially wasteful jobs that will inevitably occur because more and more people are going to embrace a green culture. If we can do this, we can do this as a people. So to begin a transition to a system providing sustainable livelihood, we support, and here's what they said: creating alternative low-consumption communities and living arrangements, including a reinvigorated, sustainable homesteading movement in rural areas. This sounds great. This would be like the communes we had in the 60s for the hippies, young people who want to do that. Or it could be like the small towns, like people down south and in the Midwest want to do. They want to create these off-the-grid places. They don't trust government. They don't want government involved in their lives. Let them do that. Let them go off the grid. Don't bother them. Let them do their own thing if they want. As long as they follow the law and don't, do anything illegal to, we don't want them hurting children or women or children, they have to obey our laws when it comes to those things. But other than that, if they want to live off the grid and produce their own electricity and their food and all that, let them do that. That's great. Don't bother them. The platform even talks about letting them use their own currency to protect bartering and trading. How great is that? They don't trust government. They don't want government. Let them do that. That's great. You know how much people will love that? Some people don't trust the government. Let them go make a commune. Live off the grid. Fine with them. Fine with the Green Party. That saves resources. That's a good thing. So the Green Party, this is the ultimate in freedom. This has the freedom, like the libertarians talk about letting you do your own thing without interference of the government, but without the protection of all these huge corporate interests that want to enslave us. It's the best of both worlds. Also talking about, people that can't find a job or for some reason can't work. Now, if they're not in one of those communes in rural areas, in urban areas, we can support voluntary shared housing, like shelters, but bigger with more more of a permanent thing for people that are going to be on public assistance long term. Now, most people that are on public assistance are on it for a year or less. In other words, they're just on it because they're in a transition from one job to the next. That's fine. For those people, that's great. But for people who think that they're going to be on it for long term and they don't have any family support, they don't have a family to live with that can help support them financially, they're probably not going to make it on their own. Unless like they can find roommates and live together with a roommate and live that way, that's fine. But if you're alone and trying to live on public assistance, you just don't make enough. So it would be great if we could have these voluntary shared housing, because as a society, we need to feel that it's our duty to take care of those weaker than us, the children, the elderly, single parents who are trying to raise their children. Sometimes they don't want to go to work. They want to stay home and raise their children. They should be able to. Children are only young for a very short time and then they grow up. You don't want to waste that time. The disabled, the mentally ill. We as a society are obligated to take care of these people. What kind of Christians would we be if we didn't? Now, not everybody's Christian, I know. I'm not religious, but I'm just saying a lot of people say they're Christians and then they don't want to take care of people. That's not Christian. Anyway, now the Green Party, they're not religious. It's not a religious party at all. Jill Stein doesn't practice any kind of religion either. But of course they support freedom of religion, freedom, of any religion. So anyway, these voluntary housing, of course, it would be voluntary. You're not forced into these. They're not prisons, but any of these people that would want to live in these, even whole families with small children who want to stay, we would encourage these group housing. So it would solve so many problems. Another problem, our society is so fragmented. People used to live in extended families. The relatives used to all live together, either in two-family houses, or like you'd have a neighborhood and all the relatives would all live around the same neighborhood. And, you would have extended families that all lived close to each other, so you'd have aunts and uncles and grandparents and everybody would help take care of the kids. It's not like that anymore, and some people just become so isolated. If we provided these communities of large group housing for the lonely people that don't have family, they can all live together and they can help each other, because maybe the people who are elderly or disabled or the older teens could help watch the younger children while their parents can work or go to school, and children can be company for the elderly people who would otherwise be all alone and lonely. It would be the way it used to be years ago when people lived together in extended families. So that's another good idea. Also, we support, Green Party supports tuition-free universities, and also to cancel student loan debt. And that is fantastic. I mean, most students are not able to pay their debt, or they're paying it and then they're not able to buy a house, or bailing out a whole generation who are really just victims of our bad decisions and the recklessness of Wall Street. And we bailed out the big banks of Wall Street. Now let's bail out the young people. Let them free up their money so they can go buy houses, get married, and have children. It would be a huge boost to the economy. I mean, people are not having children anymore because they can't afford it, because they're paying off student loans. It's ridiculous. And it wouldn't cost us anything. I mean, we need to stop paying for these ridiculous wars and start paying ourselves. Also, the Green Party believes in single-payer universal health care. Why do politicians not want a public option? Have you ever thought about that? It's an option. Shouldn't we have more options? I mean, we could still have the option of having private insurance. Opponents of these bills, these single-payer healthcare bills, they say that it'll replace insurance companies. Well, isn't that proof that it'll work better? If it didn't work, then nobody would want it. So they're actually proving that insurance companies would not be able to be as good as the public option. So that's ridiculous. So yeah, they can't compete because Medicare is fantastic. So the public option would be fantastic. So we need to do that. The biggest thing is we need to end the mass incarceration and make marijuana legal. And that'll, and just free all the people that are in jail for non-violent drug-related crimes. And making marijuana legal, that'll create hundreds of thousands of jobs. But, a lot of these things, ending these wars, that'll free up so much money to pay off our debt. And also we need to start having more fair taxes, because the way our taxes are now, we need to start taxing the wealthy. They're hiding their money out in, offshore accounts, and we can't have that. We need to stop corporate welfare. This is ridiculous. We need to stop these bailouts and subsidies to companies that don't need them, and these tax loopholes and some of unfair tax deductions that they don't need. We need to impose a transaction tax on trades and stocks and bonds and other financial instruments. We need to block the financial transactions with tax havens. Stop tax evasion. And also raise Social Security and Medicare taxes to investment income and to all income, not just the first 106,000 or whatever it is, 108,000, I forget. But if people make more than that, make them pay Social Security on it. Don't just make them pay a certain amount of Social Security. And definitely oppose the privatization of Social Security. That would be a disaster. We all know that privatizing anything is terrible. The Green Party also wants to enact a wealth tax of 0.5% per year on an individual's assets over $5 million. I don't know how I feel about that. It depends. If it's a house or... I think if it's money, I think it should be higher than 0.5%. If it's a house, that's fine. But if it's just a house and they really have no money, I wouldn't want them to have to sell their house if that's all they have and they don't really have any money. We want to enact eco taxes to help save the planet. Oh, that's a great idea. Carbon taxes on companies that use fossil fuels. Because and make them pay for the cleanup. Make companies pay for their own cleanups. Don't make citizens pay for it. They want to eliminate tax subsidies for oil, gas, coal, nuclear, and timber and mining industries that destroy the environment and deplete our resources. And raise taxes on tobacco, alcohol, soda pop, and other junk food. And give tax breaks to companies that use wind and solar power. Simplify the tax code, eliminate tax incentives to send jobs overseas. I don't know what those are, but if they are any, definitely eliminate those. Oh, here's a good one. Help small businesses and co-ops compete by reducing taxes, fees, and bureaucratic burdens. The majority of new jobs today are created by small businesses. This would cut their failure rate and help them create more jobs. So yeah, definitely make it easier for small businesses. And here's a good one. Exempt people earning less than $25,000 per year and families earning less than $50,000 per year from the federal and state income taxes, and then adjust it for inflation. That's awesome. Exempt food, clothing, prescription medications, and other necessities and secondhand goods from sales taxes. We propose adopting a reduced hour work week as a standard, 30 to 35 hours. This alone could translate into as many as 26 million new jobs. Great idea. Everybody works too hard. Work less, enjoy life a little bit more. And the worst destroyer of lives are these endless wars that only help the 1% get richer. After 16 years of war in the Middle East, all we've done is make a whole new generation of terrorists. And it goes way beyond that. So I heard someone on a, I don't know if it was a bulletin board or if it was on the news. No, it must have been on a bulletin board because I replied and made an answer. They asked, who's responsible for ISIS? And there was a video or something about Rudy Giuliani blamed Obama for ISIS. It's like, did he forget? Oh, no, he said something about that we weren't in Afghanistan before Obama. And I was like, did he forget? He must have gone senile or something. But I was thinking, okay, who's responsible for creating ISIS? And I thought, and this is what I answered. I put, Reagan created Al-Qaeda from training them and arming them and, during the Cold War. Bill Clinton is responsible for the Taliban by dragging his heels and going after them, not going after them, letting their power grow. So Bush created ISIS by these ridiculous wars, killing more civilians than terrorists and creating a whole new generation of American-hating terrorists. So I guess we don't know yet which terror group Obama created. We'll have to wait and see, but I suppose it'll rise out of the Libyan and Syrian forces we are now supporting, causing all these Syrian civilians to be refugees. Nah, we're going to get it right this time. I heard third decade's the charm. So I got a lot of likes, but a lot of dislikes for that comment. But no, I don't think the third decade's going to be the charm. We need to just get out of these wars. 178 children killed. It's just disgusting. And 178 children killed just in the drone strikes since Obama's been doing these drone strikes. I don't know how many were killed in Iraq during Bush's years. That's probably millions. Green Party. Okay, as far as... Okay, so the Green Party, they believe in nonviolence. They want to stop the wars. Trump and Hillary, of course, would stay. Both of them want to stay in the wars, which would, of course, make things worse. The Green Party's in their platform, they put, we must also end the colossal waste of taxpayer funds for armaments of war to reduce our nation's federal debt and fund our environmental and social needs. Yeah, we need to reduce our huge military budget. It's 40% of our budget. We could pay off our debt, invest in our future, and stop these drone strikes that have killed 178 children. I mean, do you remember Newtown? How horrible that was? All over the world, we're the monsters. We're the terrorists. If you vote for Hillary or Trump, you're voting for that. You're voting to be the terrorists that kill children. I won't. My conscience will be clear. I won't say I'm an American and I'm the terrorist that killed your children. So, also, another good thing, Green Party calls for a complete and thorough, impartial, and independent investigation of the terrorist attacks of 9/11, including the role of George W. Bush administration and various U.S.-based corporations and interests, other nations, and third parties. So, for all you conspiracy nuts out there, that'll you'll like that. I didn't see anything about gun control specifically in the platform. They just say they promote nonviolence. I mean, I would love it if we didn't need guns, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. We can see now that we definitely do. I am really not for gun control so much because I know we need guns. We need guns for protection against our own government in case the government gets too powerful. If you've seen my other videos about how the police is becoming like a military force in this country, I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. Things could get really bad. And, if you noticed, though, I think the only reason why no other country has ever dared invade us is because we have an armed public. So, that's my feeling anyway. I think every neighborhood needs to have a few people that are really good militia, to protect the neighborhood. Unfortunately, I'm not that one. I don't know anything about guns. My dad did. I wish he had taught me, but he died young, and at the time, I guess I was too immature, so he never taught me. But Anyway, also Green Party, we propose the repeal of the U.S. Patriot Act. NSA spying on us, that's terrible. I don't want them spying on us. They also support, they want the repeal of the national security letters, which allows the FBI to use internet service providers, libraries, banks, and credit unions. They force them to release information about us. So yeah, the Green Party is against the government spying on us and trying to get information about us and all that. They want all that stuff repealed. They believe in protecting human rights, not corporations, human rights. Corporations are not people. They want to protect Fourth Amendment rights, against illegal search and seizures. I mean, this is getting to be bad. These cops just stopping people and taking their money, and then you have to fight to get it back because they try to just say it's drug money. I mean, it's just, it's guilty until proven innocent, basically. And stop the wiretapping and the internet data collection on people that the NSA does. Just stop all that and end torture and close Guantanamo. So I pretty much agree with all of the Green Party's platform. I can't say that about any other candidate. In fact, all of the other candidates, I strongly disagree with most of their agenda. I refuse to vote against my fears. I will not vote for the lesser of two evils. I'll vote for the greater good because our lives and the lives of our children do depend on it. And our freedoms. Our freedom depends on it. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it wasn't too long. Oh my God, it's almost an hour. Sorry about that, but thanks for watching. This is Roro Rants. Thanks.